It's time to put my divination skills to the test and make some predictions. Today, we're going to be speculating on the upcoming Paizo release, Secrets of Magic, on this episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Mark and I am the Local Disaster Tour Guide. That's right, I'm a storyteller who has spent way too much time in a cursed library. Welcome to my channel where we talk about role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a fun video. Recently, Paizo wrapped up its Secrets of Magic Playtest for the Magus and Summoner classes, which are going to be released in that book next summer. Well, I feel like right now is the perfect time to do some speculation about this book, Secrets of Magic, and what Paizo may have in store for the gaming community. Now, let me just say, I obviously have no official affiliation with Paizo, so everything in this video is definitely me just speculating about what Paizo may be doing, about what they may try to accomplish with that product. But as Paizo is going through their playtest data on the two new core classes that they are going to be releasing, we have plenty of time to stop and think and speculate about the other material that may be inside that book. So today, I'm going to take my shot at speculating on what Paizo may have in store for us, and next summer when the book comes out, we'll see how well I do. However, before we dive into that, there is one thing that I want to talk about. I apologize that this announcement is coming a little bit late on my channel, but my break for my anniversary and the way my recording schedule worked out, it just kind of delayed me being able to make this announcement. But the results of the RPG Superstar 2020 competition are officially out, and I am a Platinum Prize winner from that competition. I ended up in the top 5 of that competition, and I am excited, I'm over the moon. I cannot believe that I did so well. So really quick, let me just say thank you to Roll for Combat for hosting that contest. Let me say thank you to everyone who went and voted on my entry and gave me feedback on my entry. It has been a dream of mine for my entire life to be a published author in some fashion, and now I'm going to have something that I created in a book somewhere, and yes, it's a small thing, but it's a wonderful thing. And so I just wanted to share with the channel that I did do really well in that competition. I came in top 5, and I will be honest, when I was going through and looking at all of the other entries, I was confident in my entry, but I was like silver medal confident. I just saw so many great entries, so many creative monsters that were made for that competition, and I knew I was in some really good company, and you know, I was proud of my work, but I thought I'm probably going to take a silver medal in this. To actually come in top 5, it just blew me away. And so, again, thank you, Roll for Combat. Thank you to all of the other people who participated in that competition. If you were someone who submitted a monster for that competition, I saw some fantastic work there. I know I'm in good company, and it was just so much fun. So I wanted to share that with the channel, and if you will forgive me a brief moment of maybe unwarranted optimism, let me just say to anyone who is watching this video, never be afraid to take the shot. RPG Superstar ran for several years, and I remember competing in the old competitions, and I was never a finalist. I never made it through. And it would have been really easy for me this year to look at the new round of RPG Superstar and say, I wasn't good enough before, there's no reason to try now. But I took the shot anyways. And I am so thankful that I did that. It's easy with everything negative and bad that's going on in the world to get caught up in this mindset that you're just not going to make it, you're just not going to succeed. But if you take that shot, one of two things will happen. You'll learn, or maybe you'll succeed. So again, I know this isn't the normal route I take with my videos, but if you are watching this video, please just let me say, if you see something that you are interested in, if you see something you want to try, take that shot. You never know if it's going to be that moment where you do win, where you do see that wonderful outcome, and it is a glorious, glorious thing. This game, this community, this world is a better place when you are a part of it. Take the shot, try it out. You never know if today might be your day that you get to celebrate, and thank you for celebrating with me. Okay, I got that out of my system. We can get on with the regular video now. As I said, today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Pathfinder 2nd Edition book, Secrets of Magic. This is going to be one of the main products for Pathfinder 2nd Edition next year. It's going to be one of their mainline books, and it's being hyped up already. So we know that Paizo has a lot of things that they're going to try to do with this product. We just got done with the Secrets of Magic Playtest, where the community got to give Paizo feedback on the Magus and the Summoner class, and I actually did a video with my experiences with the playtest. I'll try to throw a link up here if you want to go check that out. But it is obvious that Paizo intends to do so much more than just give us the Magus and the Summoner. So today, I thought I'd do a fun video speculating on what they may have in store. So, let's get started. Now, there are a number of quick predictions that I want to make about this book that I think we can just kind of fly through really quickly. Number one, I think that we're going to see a lot of new spells, obviously, being presented in Secrets of Magic. But one of the things I think Paizo is probably going to do is I think they're going to push more in a direction of uncommon or rare spells. We know that most of the spells that have been presented so far in Pathfinder 2nd Edition are quote-unquote common spells. But the rules make reference to the idea that there are uncommon or rare spells that would require a character to do more than just level up and take the spell when they level up. That there might be spells out there with particularly unique or powerful effects that can be unlocked if a character earns the right for them. And I think that Secrets of Magic is the perfect place to begin to show the Pathfinder 2nd Edition community what uncommon and rare spells might look like. And you can do this not just for the spell list, Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. Obviously you've got that material. The other place you can do this is with the ritual spells inside of the game. I think we could see a lot of interesting and unique, uncommon and rare ritual spells being offered to the community as well. Another quick prediction that I'd like to throw out is I think that Secrets of Magic is probably going to emphasize the idea of magic schools, at least to some extent. We already know some of the products that are coming out between now and the release of Secrets of Magic, and one of the things that's going to be focused on over the next few months is the magic school of the Magambaya in Garund in the Golarion campaign setting. And I'll go ahead and say the Magambaya is actually my favorite magic school in the Golarion setting. I like it, and I like the Arcanumerium. There are a lot of magic schools that are in the Lost Omens lore, so that's definitely material that exists conceptually. But Paizo has already told us that they are spotlighting one of their magical schools in a lot of their upcoming products. And I think Secrets of Magic is going to be a product where the concept of a magical school really gets expanded on. Now, I will say that specific Golarion magical schools probably are not going to receive a lot of attention in Secrets of Magic. The Arcanumerium might be mentioned, the Magambaya might be mentioned, but the Lost Omens line is the place where I think those schools are going to receive specific and detailed coverage by Paizo. However, the larger concept of what a magic school is and what a magic school could offer player characters, I think that is some golden material that Paizo could offer, and so I expect to see magical schools or similar academies, bardic colleges, those kinds of things, I definitely think we're going to see that in some fashion in Secrets of Magic. Building off that premise, I also expect to see magical libraries. In the Game Mastery Guide, there is a research subsystem set of rules that you can use, and it references the idea of researching at a magical library. And if you're going to have magical colleges, you need some magical libraries. I think it's a very logical extension of that concept. I think it's something that would be a lot of fun for players, and especially when you deal with prepared spellcasters like the wizard or the cleric, the concept of a magical library is a resource that has a lot of potential for those classes. So I fully expect to see magical schools, magical libraries, and similar set pieces from fantasy literature as part of the Secrets of Magic book for Pathfinder 2nd edition. Another easy piece of speculation that I honestly don't want to dive in too deep here is we're probably going to see a ton of new magical items, weapons, armors, wands, staves, runes, scrolls, you name it. I think we're going to see many more options in that larger category. Secrets of Magic is a fantastic place where they can really open up that concept of magical items and artifacts. So I do expect to see some of that material in Secrets of Magic, but trying to predict what magical items specifically from the wide history of Pathfinder lore they're going to bring in, I'm not going to try to predict that. I'm just going to say we'll definitely see some of that material. But let's get on to the main speculation that I really want to do in this video, because if there is one area where it is fun to speculate about what Paizo might be doing, it's definitely classes. What are they going to offer the various classes in Pathfinder 2nd edition in this book, Secrets of Magic? Paizo has already said that their philosophy with Pathfinder 2nd edition is they're not going to try to force something into a book, but that they are going to try to add things to their books which feel appropriate to the particular book, to the particular publication. So that tells us that they're going to be looking for things that are very topical, that are very flavorful for this concept, the Secrets of Magic. So what does that mean for the classes, and what does that mean for players in Pathfinder 2nd edition? What options is that going to open up? As it stands in Pathfinder 2nd edition, I think that there are 7 classes where we can really have some fun speculating about what's going to be offered in Secrets of Magic, but I'm going to go through all of the classes. I'm going to lump some classes together because there are many classes where my commentary on those classes is going to be very similar. But we're going to go through a few groupings of classes, and then I'm going to get to the main 7 classes that I really think are going to benefit from Secrets of Magic. So the first group that we need to talk about are the new kids on the block, the Magus and the Summoner. These are the classes that we just got done playtesting, and we know that they are going to be a major part of Secrets of Magic. Of all the information we have about Secrets of Magic, this is the one thing we know will be there. We're getting the Magus, we're getting the Summoner. And to be honest, there's not a lot of speculation that I want to do here. In observing the playtest in the past, I feel like what we saw with the playtest has already given us a decent outline of what we can expect with the Magus and the Summoner. With the possible exception of the Oracle in the APG playtest, I don't feel like most of the playtest classes have received truly radical changes from playtest to final publication, and I feel like it's probably going to be the same pattern here. What we saw with the playtest is probably what we're going to get with the final versions of the Magus and the Summoner. I do think that they're going to be tweaked, they're going to be streamlined, there are definitely going to be fixes for the classes. I feel like they will probably offer a few more options in terms of class feats for both the Magus and the Summoner. I think they were trying to get at the core of the class with the playtest, and now that the core of the class has been put through its paces, they can flesh out the classes a little bit more. So I think we will see those things, but I don't think we're going to see dramatic changes from the playtest to the actual Secrets of Magic book. So for example, I don't think we're going to see anything along the lines of several new mega synthesis options. That being said, there is one new rules element I think we will see with the summoner in particular, and that is multiple Eidolon base forms. In the playtest, if you read the summoner description, they basically openly state that each magical tradition has several options for Eidolon base forms, and as a result, it makes sense to me that we're going to see multiple Eidolon base forms for each magical tradition when it comes to summoner options. So there's not going to be one arcane Eidolon, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 arcane Eidolons that you can choose from if you're building a summoner, and the same for divine, occult, and primal magic as well. But overall, the new kids on the block, I think we've already gotten a pretty good preview of what we can expect, so let's move on to some other classes. Hello everyone, Future Mark here. So after I got done recording for this video, while I was in the editing process, Paizo actually put out an aftermath blog regarding the Magus and the Summoner playtest. And oh wow, they had a lot to say, and it's very interesting to see just how wrong some of my Magus and Summoner predictions already are. This video is already huge, so I am not going to talk about that blog in any depth here, but I did want to draw that to your attention because there is definitely some interesting information that has been put out by Paizo. I will throw a link down in the description if you want to go check that blog post out and see what Paizo has had to say about the playtest. I will give you this one teaser though. They have given us a preview of a new type of summon spell called Incarnate Summon Spells, and oh boy do they look fun. Paizo has definitely blown me out of the water with their conversations about where they want to take the Magus and Summoner, so my predictions in this video may already be a little too tame. But just wanted to make you aware of that. Check the blog post out if you're interested, and let's get back to the rest of the regularly scheduled video. Now, the next set of classes that I want to talk about are honestly the classes that are probably not getting anything in Secrets of Magic, and that is the Swashbuckler, the Rogue, and the Fighter. Truth be told, I don't think we're going to see anything for these 3 classes. And mostly it's because they are not magical classes, and there's not really any room with the classes to flesh them out in a magical way. Now, the obvious exception to that is the Rogue and the Eldritch Trickster that we saw in the Advanced Player's Guide, but I think the existence of the Eldritch Trickster in the Advanced Player Guide precludes the possibility of Rogue getting anything in this book. Basically, the Eldritch Trickster has given us the Magic Rogue, and it was built in such a way that the Eldritch Trickster can be any flavor of the Magic Rogue. So honestly, there's not really anything else that they can do with the Rogue to expand on it as a magical class. They already did it in the APG, so I don't think the Rogue's going to get anything here. Now with the Fighter, you could argue that they could try to do an Eldritch Knight subclass, but Fighters don't have subclasses, and you've heard me complain about that before, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. As such, the Fighter basically has no room to add those elements into the core mechanics of the class. So, the Swashbuckler, the Rogue, the Fighter, the way they are positioned inside the rule set of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I just don't see them getting anything noteworthy from Secrets of Magic. At best, we may get a page of class feats for these classes, but I honestly don't even see that happening. The next group of classes that I want to talk about are my long shot classes, or my outside chance classes. If I had to place a bet, I would say they're probably not going to be in Secrets of Magic, but I see some potential room where they might be. So we're going to talk about some potential options for the Alchemist, the Investigator, and the Barbarian. Now, let me just say, the Alchemist is the class that probably should not be in the book in regards to any of the classes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition because of the flavor that the Alchemist has been given in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In Pathfinder 2e, alchemy is not magic. They have expressly stated that. There are 4 magical traditions: Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. And in previous versions of the game, alchemy was an offshoot of arcane magic. But in 2nd edition, they deliberately took alchemy, pulled it away, and made it its own separate discipline that competes with magic. So they have made a big deal of the flavor of alchemy as something that is not magical. So on that premise alone, the Alchemist probably should not be in Secrets of Magic. If it's not magic, it shouldn't be there. However, I do think there is an outside chance that we will see alchemy as a competing or opposing force to magic presented in the book. Basically, we may see some anti-magic options presented in the form of alchemist class feats, alchemist formulas, or other special materials that primarily alchemists would use in combating a spellcaster. So I don't think we're going to see alchemist in there as a magical option, but we may see alchemist in the book as an opponent of magical characters. The Investigator is a skill-based class similar to the Rogue, but focused in on investigating targets and what have you. And much like the other classes we've talked about so far, it is not intended to be a spellcasting class. And honestly, what I'm about to present is probably more of a goofy wish list for me than it is a realistic expression of Pathfinder 2nd Edition's rule set. But when they announced the Investigator in the APG playtest, I remember being very upset that one version of the Investigator was not present, and that was the Ghost Hunter. Now, I don't think that you could intelligently develop an Eldritch Investigator similar to the Eldritch Trickster Rogue subclass. Trying to do an Investigator that has all of these different magical options, kind of like they did for the Rogue, I feel like that would end up feeling too thin, too vague. I don't think it would be successful. But given the success of paranormal TV shows, I think that the Ghost Hunter as a subclass of Investigator would be very interesting, very entertaining, and I think it would appeal to a lot of people, especially since there are actually ghosts in the Pathfinder campaign world. So I am willing to give it an outside chance that we may see an Investigator trained in occult magic and specializing in hunting ghosts. The final class in this category is the Barbarian. And you may be asking, why on earth are we even mentioning Barbarian as an outside chance in a book about magic? And honestly, it's because of a hybrid class from Pathfinder 1st Edition, which was the Blood Rager. The Blood Rager basically was a hybrid of the Barbarian and the Sorcerer that gained the ability to fire off spells while they were in the midst of their rage. I do think there is at least an outside possibility that Paizo would want to bring the Blood Rager back as a concept in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The question is, how do they do it? And if they do it, would they do it here? Now, one version of the Blood Rager would simply just be using the Pathfinder multi-class archetype rules, take a Barbarian, multi-class into Sorcerer, or any other spellcaster, and take the first level Barbarian class feat that allows them to concentrate on something while they're raging, and ta-da, you basically have a Blood Rager. So technically that option already exists. And if that's how Paizo wants to make the Blood Rager available, then clearly we wouldn't see it in this book. The second option for the Blood Rager would be something more akin to the Eldritch Trickster subclass that we saw for rogues. That is something that I think would be doable. Figuring out the right way to set up attributes for a Blood Rager subclass of Barbarian would be tricky, but I think it would be doable. And if Paizo decides that's the route they want to go, then we've already got a successful model from the APG that could very easily be introduced in Secrets of Magic. The final option that Paizo could use if they wanted to make the Blood Rager available in 2nd edition would be, honestly, to model the Blood Rager around the class chassis that it is used for the Magus and the Summoner class. When I look at the design of the Blood Rager in 1st edition, and consider its implications for 2nd edition, the overall class chassis that they built for the Magus and the Summoner really looks like it would work if you wanted to do a Blood Rager. I mean, obviously you'd have to change some things around and there'd be some balancing issues you'd have to think about, but if you wanted to bring the Blood Rager forward to 2nd edition, I think you could model it off what they have done with the Magus and the Summoner. And in my personal opinion, I feel like that would be the best way to do the Blood Rager class in 2E. However, there was no Blood Rager in the Secrets of Magic playtest. So if Paizo decides that they want to do Blood Rager and that they want to do it in that fashion, then we're probably not going to see it in Secrets of Magic. Maybe in a future, but not here. So, outside chance, we may see the Barbarian with a Blood Rager subclass in this book, but I would not put that probability as being very high because I think there is a better way Paizo could do it, and they have left that opportunity open down the road. The next group of classes I want to talk about together are what I'm going to call the focus spell classes. Classes that are not full spellcasters, but who instead make use of focus spells as part of their class progression. This is the Ranger, the Monk, and the Champion. Now honestly, with the Ranger and the Monk, I don't have anything specific to throw out here. I do think we will see them in Secrets of Magic. Basically what I think we're going to see is what they did for the Ranger in the Advanced Player's Guide. They're basically just going to drop a bunch of focus spells for the Ranger and Monk and probably call it a day. I don't think we're going to get anything super deep on those two classes, but I do think we will see some class feats and focus spell options being presented to those two classes. The Champion, however, is a little bit more interesting as a focus spell class, and I really think we're going to see something serious for the Champion, but I'm a little conflicted on which way they're going to go. I think Paizo has two options here, and there is what is probably more likely to happen, but then there's another option that at least I think would be a little more interesting. The first option for the champions is the glaring hole in the champion character options, which is neutral champions. Right now we have three options for good champions: lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good. We've got three options for evil champions: lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. But there are three options right there in the middle: lawful neutral, true neutral, and chaotic neutral, that have no support for the class. However, it is a logical statement to say that the neutral churches in the Galarian setting would still have champions, so it makes sense that at some point those options are going to come out. And quite obviously, divine magic is still magic, so the easy prediction for champions here would be that we're going to see the neutral aligned champions being presented in Secrets of Magic. If I'm being honest, that's probably what's going to happen, but I have a second option that I at least want to discuss because I do think it is interesting. That is, champions who are not tied to a deity or a church, but rather have a cause similar to the old Cavalier orders from Pathfinder 1st Edition. If you remember the Cavalier class in Pathfinder 1e, every Cavalier would have an order that they were a part of. Order of the Stars, Order of the Tome, things like that. And they would be dedicated not necessarily to the service of a deity, but rather to the service of an organization. I feel like that is a very natural opportunity for the champion class to develop as 2e progresses, and I feel like Secrets of Magic could be a good place to present order champions rather than deity or alignment champions. To give you two quick examples, the Cavalier Order of the Eastern Star and the Cavalier Order of the Tome would both be perfectly translatable as a champion cause in 2nd edition that could be presented in Secrets of Magic. So, second less likely option, we may see some champions who, rather than being associated with churches, are instead associated with orders and develop their cause and code from there. Now, let me just say, there is no way that Paizo is going to do both of those things in a single book. So if I had to guess which one's probably going to happen, I think we will see the neutral champions in Secrets of Magic. But I would be really excited to see some order champions put into Secrets of Magic instead. Okay, but with all of those out of the way, now we can get on to the 7 main classes where I feel like there is a lot of room to speculate about what Paizo has in store for Secrets of Magic. So let's get on to the main caster classes that I feel like there is a lot of room that Paizo can explore. We're talking about the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Wizard, Sorcerer, Oracle, and Witch. Now, 2 of these I feel like we can knock out the speculation pretty quickly. First, let's talk about the Witch. The Witch is a class I'm very excited to see how Paizo develops it. I really enjoy the build your own patron flavor to the Witch class. It's very engaging to me. And I feel like Paizo is going to continue those elements to the class, so we're going to see new patrons, new lessons, new hexes. That kind of material is really obvious. Now, right now the Witch class does feel a little bit unbalanced in terms of there are more patrons for certain magical traditions than there are for others, and the biggest gap for the Witch is the divine tradition patrons. So maybe this is more of a wish for me than it is an actual prediction, but I do want to see some more options for divine tradition witches, and when I look back at some of the 1st edition patrons, I feel like the wisdom and portents patrons are both ones that could translate well into adding another divine tradition option to the witch. Honestly, if you want to make predictions about what Paizo is going to do with the witch in Secrets of Magic, just go look up the old patrons in 1st edition, because every single one of those is an opportunity for Paizo to bring something forward. Right now, because of the imbalance between traditions, I want to see some more divine traditions brought forward, but I definitely think we're going to see a lot of those being pulled and offered as options in 2nd edition. The other class where I feel like I can get my prediction out pretty quickly is the Druid class. Since the release of the Advanced Player's Guide, the Druid class has felt like it really needs another subclass, but the question has been, what subclass could Paizo offer to expand the Druid as an option for players? Well, there are a number of different ways you could potentially take the Druid. One of the early ones that I kicked around for a few months was the Hunter Druid, a Druid whose philosophy is built around a predator-prey kind of mindset. I think that would be very interesting from a roleplay perspective, although I really struggled with figuring out a way to make that version of a Druid significantly different from the ranger. So honestly, I'm going to shelve that idea because one, I'm not sure how to make it mechanically different, and two, an Order of the Hunt druid doesn't feel Secrets of Magic to me, so we need to think of something else that Paizo might have to offer, and I think I have an idea what they may have up their sleeve. Allow me to propose an Order of the Swarm druid. It is a classic concept in druids or other nature magic style characters to have the druid unleash a swarm of animals, a swarm of bats or birds or rats to consume their foes. It's an iconic image in fantasy literature that honestly doesn't work very well right now in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Summon spells summon one creature. And even if a druid cast multiple summon spells, you would still have the problem of you have to spend one action every time you want an animal to do something. So the idea of a druid summoning a horde of animals is something that, at least at present, Pathfinder 2nd Edition doesn't do well. However, Paizo has announced that the Bestiary 3 is going to have troop rules. They're going to have rules for battling a large number of weak creatures all at the same time, basically putting troops on the battlefield. Well, troops can easily be reflavored as swarms, and once you make that distinction, you have a rule set capable of supporting an Order of the Swarm druid. So, based on what they're doing in the Bestiary 3, I'm going to make the prediction that we're going to see an Order of the Swarm druid as an option in Secrets of Magic so that you can have the druid who is calling down a horde of creatures to attack their enemies. Now, the next class I want to do predictions on is going to be the Sorcerer class, mostly because we already kind of know the outline of what Paizo is going to do. In 2nd Edition, the Sorcerer has been billed as a spontaneous caster that, based on its bloodline, has the ability to draw from any of the 4 magical traditions. You can have an Arcane Sorcerer, a Divine Sorcerer, an Occult Sorcerer, and a Primal Sorcerer. And they were very careful in the core rulebook about making sure that there was a reasonable balance between the different bloodlines or subclasses so that you had a good spread of representation of all 4 of the magical traditions. The Advanced Player's Guide, they kept that spread. You had an arcane option, a divine option, an occult option, a primal option. It's very clear that Paizo is trying to maintain that balance of keeping the sorcerer as the class that can go in any of 4 different directions, and they're not trying to weigh one direction more than another. As such, when we look at Secrets of Magic, really the question is, what bloodlines are they going to offer as options? And we already know we have to pick an arcane, divine, occult, and primal. We have to keep that balance. So I'm going to offer my speculations on what they might use to fill those 4 slots. The divine bloodline was the easiest one for me to pick. I think that they are going to go with either the Aeons or Inevitables as a bloodline, or possibly the Proteans, and we may see both. Basically, divine bloodlines involve outsiders of some kind, and the Aeons and Inevitables, or the Proteans, we haven't seen that outsider option presented for a sorcerer bloodline. It's an easy fit. Primal was a little bit trickier, but I still figured out a pretty easy fit for it as well. I think we could see the return of the verdant or plant bloodline for sorcerers. We already have a plant-focused druid, but we don't really have a plant-focused option for sorcerers who want to use primal magic, so I feel like a verdant bloodline is just an easy fit. It slots right into something that the sorcerer is going to need, so that's my prediction for the primal sorcerer. Now, arcane and occult are the bloodlines where it starts to get tricky because you're really trying to figure out what lore options could fit well for bloodlines in 2E. For the Arcane Bloodline, I settled on an option that I'm having a little bit of trouble naming, so we're just going to call it the Construct Bloodline. Now, if it was my personal campaign world, this would be called the Magnetic Bloodline, because of just some lore stuff that's happening at my table's version of Golarion. But basically, the idea of this is a sorcerer who comes from a family that has been experimented on in some fashion, where they are now a merger of both human and construct. I think that is an interesting concept. I think you could play around with that a lot, and it's an easy fit for the Arcane Bloodline. But the one I had the most trouble with placing was the new Sorcerer Occult Bloodline. What could Paizo possibly do here? Now, I will admit I looked at a number of different creatures, I thought about several different options, but I really wanted to find something that would make for an intriguing concept, and I had something cross my mind. I don't know if Paizo will do this, but I think it would be interesting if they did. I am going to propose for the Occult Sorcerer that they offer the Unwritten Bloodline. Now, what is the Unwritten Bloodline, you may ask? Well, the standard sorcerer, their magic comes from the influence of their ancestors. It is their past family and the actions, activities, circumstances of that family that eventually manifested in the sorcerer's ability to call upon magic. But what if you had a sorcerer that was not influenced by their ancestors, but rather by their descendants? Yes, this is the time magic bloodline for sorcerers, and I think it's a perfect fit for the occult bloodline. The character's family, not necessarily direct descendants, but their family has been influenced by some unknown, distant future event whose repercussions are so powerful that the backlash has actually fallen on the character themselves. Imagine a sorcerer not influenced by their ancestors, but rather by what's going to happen to their descendants. I think it is an interesting concept for a sorcerer. I think it's an easy way to give sorcerers time magic as an option, and I think it's a perfect fit for occult magic. So that's my prediction, the Unwritten Bloodline for sorcerers. So moving in kind of order of interest for me, the next class that I want to speculate on is the Cleric. And if you've watched some of my other videos on classes in 2E, you know that I feel like the Cleric is kind of a class that's been shortchanged a little bit. So I'm really hoping to see some good stuff here. But if there is one thing I really want to see, and I think I've mentioned this in other videos, I would like to see a new Cleric doctrine or subclass, the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor was a class in Pathfinder 1E that focused on hunting down the enemies of a church, and I think you could get a light-armored cleric spellcaster filling that role very, very easily in 2E, and honestly, the judgment ability from 1E is a perfect fit for focus spells in 2E. I think it's a natural development of the cleric class, and so that is my prediction of what I think we're going to see in Secrets of Magic. I will say, I have seen some arguments for the Inquisitor as a variant of Champion and the Inquisitor as a variant of Investigator. Both of those are good options, but my heart just wants more for the Cleric, so I'm throwing the Inquisitor in as my prediction for the Cleric in Secrets of Magic. But now let's move into some classes where my speculation is going to get a little bit more complex, a little bit more involved, because I definitely think there are some things that we have to weigh and consider in deciding where the remaining classes might go. Next up, let's talk about the Bard. Now, if I'm being truly honest here, there is an obvious gap with the Bard that Paizo needs to fill at some point, but I don't think they're going to do it in Secrets of Magic. Right now, you essentially have 4 subclass options for the Bard. for muses, if you will. You have the Maestro Muse for your musical bard. You have what is essentially the Lore Master bard. You have the Polymath, which is your generalist bard that can kind of do a little bit of everything. And then in the Advanced Player's Guide, they gave us the Warrior Muse, the combat bard, if you will. If you take music and magic, lore, generalist, and warrior, there's an obvious gap there, which is skills. In previous versions of the game, bards were not a heavy skills class, but they were still a talented skills class, and I do think that there is room for the bard as a skills-based class in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I think you could make that variant pretty easily, and I think it would be a lot of fun. Here's how I would do it. My bard subclass is called the Savant, and basically the subclass would do two things. First, the Savant would allow you to begin the game with expert proficiency in a single skill of your choice. You would then follow the normal skill progression for 2nd edition for the bard from that point, but you would begin the game at first level with a single expert skill. Then, the Savant Bard would gain a class feat called Field Instruction, which basically would allow the Bard's allies to follow the leader during exploration mode in addition to one other tactic. There are lots of abilities in Pathfinder 2nd Edition where a character can gain a bonus tactic during exploration mode. So you could have a rogue who is both avoiding notice and searching for traps because of their class feats. However, at the moment, we don't have any options to give extra tactics to allies as part of a class feat, and I think the Bard class is the perfect place to do that. So you could build a skill Bard, and like I said, I called mine the Savant, and their ability is just basically other characters can follow the leader in addition to their normal tactic, but the restriction is this: they can only follow the leader if the Bard is an expert in the skill that they are following. And Field Instruction would level up naturally throughout the game. If the Bard reaches Master or Legendary in a particular skill, then more allies would be able to follow the leader in addition to their normal tactics. It's simple, it's easy to implement, and I think it's a good fit for the Bard. I want to see this happen. And honestly, it's not going to happen in Secrets of Magic because this is Secrets of Magic, not Secrets of Skill Checks. So, I had to sit down and I had to think very carefully, if we're not going to get a skill bard in Secrets of Magic, what could we get? We've got music and magic, we've got lore, we've got combat, we've got the generalist. And then it hit me, items. Bard is the standard bearer class for the occult magic tradition in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know I'm a little iffy on whether or not Bard should have been the standard bearer, but it is the standard bearer, and that means that as Paizo expands occult magic in the game, they are naturally going to be doing at least some of that with the Bard. So I went and I looked at the occult classes from 1st edition, and I realized that there is one class that you could reasonably incorporate into the Bard as a subclass, and I think it would be a decent fit. Now, in 1st edition, that class is called the Occultist, and I don't think you could call it the Occultist here just because of the nomenclature of the game, but the Occultist specialized in drawing residual magic out of items and tokens and other just small things that they found throughout the game. Their tie to different occult items gave them all kinds of unique and interesting powers. And I think you could absorb the 1E Occultist into the Bard pretty effectively. Allow me to speculate a little bit and offer a new Bard subclass called the Curator. They collect, catalog, and utilize all sorts of unique items with residual or other interesting magical effects. I feel like you could build some pretty interesting options into the Bard pretty easily for a concept like this. Here's a simple Bard class feat that you could do for a Curator subclass, which I'm going to call Conserve Talisman. Once per day, the Bard can activate an attached talisman without expending it. And in my hypothetical feat here, I'm going to restrict this feat to talismans at or below the Bard's character level. But I think this is an easy way you could expand the Bard and give them some new and interesting flavors. So this is my actual prediction for Secrets of Magic. We're not going to see the skill Bard, but I think we might see the magic item Bard make an appearance, so I predict the Curator is going to show up. Now, the next class that I want to talk about is in some ways a little bit obvious what direction they're going to go, but at the same time there's still some fun speculation to be had, and that is the Oracle class. If you've seen my most recent video ranking the classes, you know I really enjoyed the Oracle because of how well they did designing the Oracle mysteries and the Oracle curses. And honestly, it's the Oracle curses that just really get my mind going and really get me thinking about flavor of different characters. And it's obvious that the developmental direction of the Oracle in Secrets of Magic is going to be, here are some new mysteries, and here are some new curses to go with those mysteries. Now, the easy speculation to do here would just be to throw out every first edition mystery that they did for the Oracle and say, hey, they could bring this forward into second edition. But I would like to go a little bit further in my speculation for this class. One of the things they're doing in second edition is they are creating custom curses for each mystery. So the question isn't just which mysteries are going to be brought forward, but also what sort of flavorful curses will they create for the mysteries that they include. Let's do an easy one here. In the Advanced Player's Guide, we got the Flames mystery and we got the Tempest mystery, so we've got fire, water, and air covered pretty well already. However, in classical elemental nomenclature, there's one element that is not represented yet, and that is stone. We do know that there was a stone mystery in 1E, so it makes sense that they would bring the stone mystery forward into Pathfinder 2nd edition. But what curse could they possibly create that would fit the stone mystery well? I'm going to call my curse the Curse of Unyielding Stone. The small flavorful effects would be that your character's skin probably looks very rough and your voice probably is low and very gravelly. Just some basic cosmetic things. But as you begin to use your mystery powers and as you begin to call on your focus spells, you would begin to take on the nature and stubbornness of stone itself. I could see this curse robbing a player character of their ability to speak, not wanting to give up their secrets. In exchange, the player might find that their verbal components are instead replaced with extra somatic components. I could also see this mystery and curse granting some unique senses to the Oracle. In particular, I think the Stone Oracle is a natural fit for Tremor Sense as an ability. But as the Oracle's curse gets stronger, not only would they lose the ability to speak, but they would begin to see themselves slowing down, moving less, and ultimately becoming petrified. I think that this would be really cool. If a stone oracle's curse progressed too far, they become a petrified statue, temporarily stuck in one position, in one facing, and they are still capable of casting spells, but can only target through the tremor sense that their mystery bestows. Now, after combat ends and they refocus, they can come out of their statuesque state, but I think that would be really cool. Your curse progressively locking you in place because you become as stubborn as the stone itself. So my prediction for Secrets of Magic in the Oracle class, I think they will bring the Stone Oracle forward, and I think we could see a curse that actually temporarily petrifies the character, locking them in place. I think that'd be a ton of fun. But now we come to the last class that we need to talk about and speculate about for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And truthfully, this is a class where the speculation could run wild. We could go 100 different directions. That is the Wizard. If you know me, you know that across all RPGs over all time, the Wizard is actually my favorite class. I have played more Wizards than I have any other class, and I just absolutely love the Wizard class. So naturally, the Secrets of Magic book, I am very anxious to see what they offer. Now, in terms of Wizard customization, you have three big options. You have your Arcane Bond, which is either a particular object or a familiar that the Wizard is bonded to. I do think that they could expand those options. You also have the Arcane Thesis, which is basically your doctoral research project as a Wizard. I love the unnecessarily wordy and pretentious nature of the Arcane Thesis options. Surely they will have some more opportunities in that as well. But there is one aspect of the Wizard that I feel needs some more, and I think there's a very prime opportunity, and that's the Wizard's Arcane School. Right now, the Wizard can choose to be a specialist, taking one school of magic and really focusing in on it. Abjuration, conjuration, evocation, you name it. They are a specialist in that school, and they get extra spell slots so they can throw out extra magic specifically of that type every day. Good choice. The other option is the Universalist, which doesn't specialize in a school, but rather gets the ability to recall their spells more often throughout the day. However, at the moment, the Arcane School aspect of the Wizard really feels stuck, because you've only got 8 schools of magic, so you've got 8 specialty schools and 1 Universalist option. What else could you possibly do? My answer is this: hybrid schools of magic. That's right. Give us wizards that could take 2 different schools of magic and blend them together in some unique and interesting fashion. Now, if I remember my permutations correctly, I believe this presents us with like over 30 different possible permutations of the Wizard School. Number one, I'm going to say if Paizo gives us hybrid schools, they're not going to give us 32, and that would be a tall order. But I do think that Paizo could lay the groundwork for hybrid schools as a Wizard option in this book, and that would give them room to develop as 2nd edition moves forward. Now, one thing I would like to say about doing hybrid arcane schools is, Paizo, if you go this direction, please don't be bland. Don't give us a generic hybrid school, abjuration, conjuration, or whatever. Give us actual schools that just happen to be hybrid schools of magic. There are plenty of fantastical options that you could put out there where you could do this. For example, the Chronomancer. Chronomancy is a classical concept in fantasy literature. Time mage is a thing we've all heard of before. So you could have the arcane school of Chronomancy and then pick 2 schools underneath Chronomancy that the wizard could use as a hybrid class. Now, there is going to be a ton of debate about what each combination should be called, or even which title fits which 2 schools. With Chronomancy, I could easily see an argument for divination and necromancy, or divination and transmutation. Both of those, I think, could be excellent hybrid options if you wanted to do the Chronomancer. One that I would like to pitch is the Arcane School of Astronomy, focusing on divination and enchantment, seeking both knowledge and intellect among the stars. You can pretty quickly see how this creates a wide slew of options for Paizo. It really opens up what the wizard is capable of doing, and when you do things like the Astronomer or the Chronomancer or whatever other version of a fantastical wizard you would want, it would be really easy to develop unique focus spells. There's plenty of material you can work with there. The only challenge in doing hybrid schools of magic is balancing hybrid schools of magic. Single school specialists already get extra spell slots, and the universalist already gets to repeat spells more regularly. So those options are off the table if you would want to make a hybrid school balanced, and I'm not sure that I have figured out exactly how to do this. So I'm going to take a shot. I may be off here, but this is the best I could come up with. Hybrid casting schools would have a special ability where maybe once per day, or maybe by expending a focus point, they could take an action and switch one spell from one of their schools for another spell from the other school of the same level or lower. So, with my astronomer that uses divination and enchantment, they could, maybe once per day, maybe by spending a focus point, trade out an enchantment spell for a divination spell of equal or lower level. And vice versa, they could switch out a divination spell for enchantment as well. I'm not sure if it's balanced, but it is interesting, and it plays into the wizard as a flexible casting class, so I think it is definitely some room that Paizo could consider. But those are all of my thoughts on Secrets of Magic. Those are my ideas about where Paizo could be going. Those are my ideas about what Paizo could be doing. But what do you think? It's time to throw the conversation over to you. What do you think Paizo is going to include in Secrets of Magic? Are there any topics that I didn't cover in this video? Or do you have any thoughts about what Paizo is going to do for the various classes in their game? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, like it and share it, subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more content coming. Thank you for being a part of this conversation, and have a wonderful day.